What's good, everybody? This is my review of Hip Hop Homicides. 50 Cent's show that he's producing, however it works. I'm not putting him in the thumbnail because that's not even part of the episode. But the first episode was on Pop Smoke. This is my review of it. I like how the show details and has many different parts of it. I feel like the injustice has to do with the fact the men are still on trial and the case hasn't gone to court yet to be prosecuted on these men that allegedly did this to Pop Smoke. The biggest part that sucks is if Corey Walker did sit there and let that happen, and these young men threw their life away, not even thinking of, hey, I'm trying to be cool for this guy. What if I get caught? Like, they didn't even think that far. And it's sad that they're really going to be locked down for a while, and when they're inside, it's going to be bad. Because Pop Smoke was a well-known figure, and understand when these guys do this to these well-known figures, even though they think they slide through, even not getting convicted, they still spend time in prison while they await sentencing, which is bad for them because they can end up in any situation. A lot of things that happen to these guys, they don't speak up and talk about. So being violated and things, they're not quick to talk about being violated. No man would be, especially if that violation consists of you bending over somehow or you being forced into a situation. A lot of this stuff that would make it uncool for the public to understand what happens to these men doesn't come out. I just want that to be known, because a lot of times they're going to sit there and act like they came out scot-free, but they didn't. They got touched up and down, sadly, from top to bottom against their will. And that's a lot of guys that are in this situation that go in. They don't talk about it, though, because that's going to make them seem weak. That's coming out with that. It's going to be terrible for people to know. But they're not sitting in there, everything's okay. It's not like that a lot of times. And if they're not guilty, it just sucks because you had to spend time in there and you're not guilty. But that's why you should have spoke up and said, hey, I didn't do it. This person did it. But they want to stick to some code that allows them to have to open their legs, touch their toes, forces them to have stuff done that no other man has to go through, but yet sits back and via social media or some other form of talking validates you going in silence. But does he speak about you getting harassed, you getting touched a certain way that a grown man should never have to experience? That stuff is not talked about. And a lot of these things go down with these suspects and these artists that are accused of this stuff. That's why it's big time to make sure the right person is behind bars, because they're getting violated while they're behind bars. And if they know who did it and they're not guilty, they should have spoke up in the first place. And that's why they end up in these situations, sadly. That's the truth of it, something that's not talked about, something that a lot of artists won't talk about, something that a lot of people won't talk about in general. Yeah, their dude went in and did the time, but look at what happened to him behind the scenes. He don't feel like a man no more. See, that's what happens. And that makes a lot of these guys go crazy because they stuck to some code all their life. And then when they come out, they're like, yo, can't believe I let that happen to me for this guy, in terms of trying to get respect, in terms of me trying to take a stance and operate a certain way. Now, what I did like, I like how the detective talked in it and how we saw progression. Progression is a major part of many cases, and we don't see it in a lot of cases. So I do see progression happening in his case. They got the 4 men caught and they're working on the situation. I know this detailed a little while ago, but I'm still going to push it and give my thoughts on it. Season 1, episode 1, I would deem a success. One thing I would like to know, I would like to have updates as the series goes on, which would be prevalent to have in transition, because nothing's going on. It should transition to me seeing updates on different cases as it goes forward. That I would like to see. If I was going to make any type of analysis, I'm going to work through episode 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to current. And that's going to be something I have that I promised I'd do. This is for the requester, for you. All rights reserved. You know how I rock. My one major thing I want to say is, as you go forward watching this, keep a critical thinking mind. Don't think it's dry, cut, over with when the detective's talking, because I see loopholes in what the detective was doing in their method. So if you can find loopholes or even think of alternative solutions, don't think the detective's way is the only right way. They're not always right. They're not always correct. And a lot of times we see this, and he probably did the P&B Rock story. I got to see it already. And that has a lot of gaps in it. And the funny thing is, one of the social media people we know and love seems to fill in that gap of time, and no one's noticed that. Not the detective, no one investigating, and he got scared and jittery, acting funny style when I started calling it out, because he knows that phone calls, records, and stuff, his need checked too. He was in touch with the person. So anybody who's in touch with the person I know of, I need to see what y'all talked about. That's what these detectives haven't figured out yet. They probably, and that's why I didn't think she was a senior. Maybe she is a senior detective. But other than that, man, this is a little atrocious. But you know how I rock. All rights reserved.